Okay, so I went through and I actually read a whole bunch of comments on YouTube. These are y'all's biggest questions and I'm going to answer them as a professional editor. I'm an author too. I have been on both sides of the page and of the editing process. So one of y'all's questions was, what is the difference between editing on paper and editing on a screen? Now, what I think is the best difference between editing on paper and editing on a screen is, especially if you have been mostly writing, which is what most people do, you know, it's 2026, most people write their books in Google Docs or on a Word document. So it's very much a writing kind of environment for your brain. You're thinking, okay, I'm drafting this thing, this is in the writing process. So it's very difficult to separate yourself from the manuscript that you're working on. Now, when you print it out for the first time, it really does give you this feeling of, oh my gosh, this is the real thing, this is a real book, I'm reading this, and even the feeling of being able to turn the page and think about the feeling that it's giving you, it mimics the feeling of actually reading a book, which then for the editing process, it makes it 1,000 times easier to be able to edit your work, because suddenly you're not reading it like a writer, you're reading it like a reader. Like, it tricks your brain into thinking, oh, this was weird. Kind of like the same way that you read a book and you're like, I don't understand why that author did that. This doesn't make sense. All the things. Basically, it's tricking your brain into going into a different function so that way it makes editing easier, because the thing that makes editing difficult when you are the author is that you cannot separate yourself from your work. But on putting it on paper, it becomes a lot easier to trick your brain into thinking, oh, this is somebody else's story. Oh, I don't remember this part. And that's what also separation from your work gives you. If you've been separated from your work for, ideally 24 hours, try to give yourself more if you possibly can. You know, if you're working on a novel, a month, 2 months, the more time, the better. Not too much time, obviously, but the more time that you give your brain to kind of separate itself from the manuscript, the better your edits are going to be, because it's going to be less personal and it's going to be less attached to you. So that's the difference, and that's why I usually recommend having people go through edits, like print it out, go through edits like that. If you're pressed for time, doing edits on the computer is going to be faster, but it might be more challenging in the long run if you're going through a long manuscript and you're not sure how you want it to go. So that's my 2 cents.